Crusader Kings 3 has been out for almost 2 full months now, and we have all learned a lot. But I feel like there's always something new I learn every time I boot the game up. In this video today, I want to go through 8 tips that will help you out in starting out your next campaign, consolidating power during a succession of your current campaign, or helping to expand your lands through some nefarious methods. Hopefully some of these tips will help guide you through managing succession or setting up your court and council for a stronger future. Rather than having the cliffhanger of what each one of these tips are, you can quickly jump to the ones you want to hear about or use them as a reference point by navigating to the chapters in the timeline or in the table of contents in the description below. And as always, if you've yet to pick the game up, you can find a link in my description to my newly launched storefront on Nexus. The platform gets keys directly from the developer and provides them to you to be placed into Steam. It's a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much if you decide to use my link. But let's get started on 8 tips to up your game in Crusader Kings 3. And our first tip is going to be about marrying off your courtiers or marrying them to knights to help boost either your council, your court, or your knights. So let's start off by looking at our council, and our marshal is absolute garbage. And let's assume that I don't have any good marshals in my court already that I can swap into this position. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our courtiers, our court. So the quickest and easiest way to do this rather than scanning through this list is pressing C. That'll bring up your character finder, and you want your relation to match the realm in which you are looking. So the top realm is your liege's realm or your realm. As you can see right here, top realm is the realm of the top liege. I am the top liege. So that's all we need to do. Otherwise, if you say had a liege, you'd want to look in your immediate realm. But we're going to switch the parameters here to gender, female, and to marital status, unmarried. And we're going to find someone who, let's just choose her because she's younger, so we have a higher likelihood to find a good spouse for her. Let's press find spouse, and we want to click matrilineal. This is super important because whoever we marry, if they are not in our court, they're going to come to our court, and that's what's important about this. So I'm going to sort this by marshal, and we can see this guy right here at the top has got 21 martial ability. So he's going to make a really good individual to fill out that martial position. And this is really strong in the beginning, especially if you're playing a duke or a count level character that doesn't have a huge court to take advantage of. This is how you can boost it up. In addition, if you take a look at your military, then go to your knights. I would look for knights that have really strong characteristics, or perhaps find them a spouse that has a good congenital trait that matches up with the knight. Again, you're going to press the little filters button here, and let's just type in hail, the bottom tier of the strong traits. Like this one. And now my knight will start to produce children that will be better knights in the future. So you can use these methods to increase your court, your council, and also the future of your knights in your realm. And just to jump forward a little bit here, you can see that that gentleman has accepted my offer for marriage. We're going to jump back to the council, swap out the marshal, and you can see he's right here at the top. Since we did the matrilineal marriage, he came to my court. Let's jump over now to our next tip. Our next tip is about seducing or befriending courtiers to add to your realm. Now, this can be a great way to give you additional concubines if your religion or culture allows for it, or a great way to add additional courtiers to your realm once more, or just a good way to have a good lover if you need some more children. So let's assume that we don't have any courtiers we can marry off to use the alternative tip to do this. So we're going to bring up the character finder by pressing C one more time, and this time we're going to change our relation to all. And then diplomatic range, we're going to change to inside. Of course, the difference here being that anyone outside of our diplomatic range, we typically cannot influence. Now for the personal section, we're going to change ruler to not a ruler, and then adult to adult. And let's just assume we're looking for a really good physician. So I'm going to type in physician here for the renowned physician. And from here, we can choose anyone from the list to befriend or seduce. And once you befriend or seduce this individual, you can then invite them to your court. It's very unlikely that you would be able to invite them to your court outside of this without somehow increasing their opinion of you through the roof. But let's go ahead and look at this character. So we can say invite to court. You can see it says -45. So we've got some options. I can befriend her and this will bring her to court, or I can seduce her. So if I go ahead and press just seduce here, and I see I have an 80% chance for this to go through, and I'll start the scheme, and I'm going to fast forward to show you what happens after the seduction scheme goes through. Okay, we have completed the romance, and one thing you should know with the befriend or romance scheme, you have to actually go through with it and seduce them and make them your lover. If you just go ahead and sleep with them, then that's not going to result in being able to invite them to your court. So, okay, we'll do this. They become our lover. And I jump over here to relationships. I can click on her. I can right click her. I can invite her to the court. And wait for it. She'll say, I accept. And this is a really great way. There you go. You've recruited her to your court. So now I have a really good option for a physician in my court. And even further, I can marry her off matrilineally once more to increase more people into my court. So these are really great ways to bolster that court and those council positions that you might not have enough courtiers to marry into, or help increase your concubines to get really good specific perks you're looking for, congenital ones such as hail, so on and so forth. So really take a look at these tips to help you out in bolstering those courtiers. Our next tip is about using your spouse's focus to help out in any decisions. So I'm going to bring up this decision that we've come across right here. And if I just hover over this, I can see that it is a learning challenge. Well, let me bring up my character real quick. My learning is only 13. And I'm getting assistance from my spouse as is, but we can really crank this up a notch. So I'm going to bring up my council. And remember, take a look at our learning challenge real quick. We're at a 66% chance of a possible positive outcome. And you can do this in the middle of a decision. It doesn't need to be unpaused. And I guess take this with a grain of salt. There's a likelihood that this might get patched away. But I'm going to have my wife switch over to patronage, since this is going to boost my learning by 15. Now if I hover over this, this possible outcome just increased by 30%. So anytime you come across these decisions that say a specific type of challenge, not all the time, but most of the time, you can quickly swap your spouse's skill to match with that challenge type to help give you a much higher likelihood chance of success. Our next tip is about moving the realm capital, and this can really help you out if you're dealing with all the different phases of the partition succession law, especially Confederate partition. So let's go ahead and bring up the succession laws real quick. And we're going to look at those real fast. So with each one of these, even with high partition, the real big thing to focus on is the player heir always is given the primary title, the realm capital, and any direct de jure titles associated with it. So as you can see right now, Prince Pandolf is going to inherit the Kingdom of Sicily, but he will also only inherit the Duchy of Salerno and then these newly captured lands in Dyrrachium on the right here. But those aren't really a lot of lands, and Prince Tyrion is going to get the lion's share of most of the good counties or domains within my land. So to kind of circumvent this, you can actually assign a different realm capital. So you have to scroll down and take a look. Let me just pop into the duchy menu real quick. You have to look at the duchy capital of a duchy, and that is the only location that can become a realm capital. So we're going to select Palermo here. We're going to look over at Move Realm Capital here. And this can only be done a handful of years. Actually, I think it's done once per ruler. It's one or the other. But when I press this button, I'm going to bring back up the succession laws. Watch what happens. And I've gone over this before in my succession laws video, but I think it's a really good standalone tip on its own. So now that that's here, things will take into effect once I unpause. There you go. So now you can see Prince Pandolf is now going to get the lion's share of everything. He retains what he was originally going to get under Confederate partition, and now he still gets the primary title and the capital, which is now Palermo, Sicily, and all of the adjoining de jure titles that associate with that duchy. So this is a really great way to kind of navigate around partition, especially Confederate partition. Now my next tip is about slow playing your succession. When your character dies and it transfers over to your heir, don't get into any offensive wars, don't go expand your borders, work internally, because there's two factors that are working against you. One is the fact that you now have a short reign penalty, which is minus 20 opinion. Now, depending upon your renown, number 2, you're coming down from a long reign opinion bonus. So let's take a look at this. My current reputable renown puts me at a possible maximum plus 25 long reign bonus. Now, when I go to short reign, I'm going to be that minus 20. So you're getting a minus 45 opinion just from the fact that you're jumping from long to short reign. So you really have to control what you're doing and spend a lot of time working internally. And you can try to mitigate some of that by having your counselor, your chancellor, be swapped over to domestic affairs. And you really want to keep an eye on your factions, mainly this Liberty faction. Those are going to be the dissenters that aren't too stoked about you swapping over. Now, this is ordered from most to least military contribution onto this Liberty faction. So what you really want to try to do is appease the people at the front of this list, either by imprisoning them, which will remove them from the faction, appointing them to council if that's what they simply want, granting them any of their lands that you maybe hold that they want. All these little factors can really help out in trying to solidify your reign once you pass over into succession. You're going to spend a lot of time, probably the first 3 or 4 years of your succession, just working internally, and that's totally fine. And if you really want, you can right-click on one of these guys and imprison him. Well, that guy's got a 100% chance. That guy's also got a 100% chance. Let's try and find someone that doesn't have 100%. Well, let's just say 72%. You can try to imprison someone who has a very small percentage chance of success, and this will trigger a large amount, or it will trigger the revolution basically, and you can kind of counteract this by destroying each isolated army and then wiping the slate clean. So you do have those 2 ways to go about this. So take this how you will, but definitely try to slow play your succession as best you can. Our next and my last tip about succession is going to be about managing your heirs. Now, you can simply just disinherit all the children that you don't want to have land. You can do that. Everyone does it. It's perfectly fine and able to do so. But as you push out of the partitions and then into the, I guess, genitor portions, the single realm heir succession laws, a lot of people are going to want to jump to this one. Primogeniture. This is your oldest child inherits all of your titles. There's no, dividing of anything. But then there's this other one, Ultimageniture. Now this one's really important because depending on how old you are when you have your oldest son, your first son, this might actually be way more advantageous. Let's say, I have my first son when I am the age of 18. Well, I got a lot of years under my belt at that point. And unless I die by some mishap or a disease, die in battle, whatever it is, I'm going to end up with a kid or I'm going to end up with an heir that is 55 maybe when I take over that character. So really look at Ultimageniture as a possible way to deal with single realm heir succession, and a great option because if you die at the age of, let's just say 65, and your youngest son is 19, 20, maybe even 25, you have a pretty young character that you can continue to manipulate. There's nothing worse than doing a primogeniture realm law, dying at the age of 70, and you take over a 50-year-old son who has just terrible traits, a terrible wife, a terrible everything. So really look at Ultimageniture as a possible way to deal with the single realm heir situation. Our next tip is marriage with hooks. And this one actually comes to us from fellow YouTuber Party Elite. I'm going to link the video that he references this in the upper right corner. Please go check it out. He explains this in great detail, and he's got a plethora of other guides that you can take advantage of. But the way that this essentially works is that you can use your courtiers, your children, your sisters, your brothers, whatever it is, to marry into a possible target's court. So take, for example, the Byzantine Empire. Maybe I want to infiltrate them and start doing some damage, maybe even outright killing the ruler of the empire at the time. So you can go through your intrigue list, your hooks and secrets, and take a look at who you have weak and strong hooks for. Now, if you are the dynasty head, you will have weak hooks on pretty much everyone, and especially if they're your children, you'll have a weak hook on them. Keep in mind though, you can only use strong hooks to put people into a murder plot, which is essentially what you would like to do. But if you boost anyone's opinion of you before sending them over into the corresponding court of your enemy, you can use them to hopefully just invite them to a murder plot because they already have an outstanding opinion of you. So take, for example, my daughter here. I'm going to choose a spouse. And, you know, I don't think that... Yeah, we'll go ahead and just choose Ruthenia for this example. We'll send this proposal. Unpause. It'll push through. And there we go. We're now in some way, shape, or form within this court. Now, keep in mind, though, you have to put someone that is an adult into the court if you want them to take part in any murder schemes. And the only time that you can use a hook to put them into a murder scheme is, again, if they have a strong hook. But hopefully, you know, I'd want to assassinate the prince here. We would use a hostile murder scheme. We would start the scheme. Jump back here to schemes and press invites. Now, if my daughter was of age, she would crop up in this list to add both the success chance and to the scheme power. Remember, you don't have to just simply use family members. You can fabricate hooks on any of your courtiers to help you in this endeavor. And anytime you fabricate a hook, more often than not, it will be a strong hook that can allow you to leverage them into becoming a member in a murder plot. And as Party Elite put it, if you are really lucky, you can actually have them become members of the individual's court, either as maybe a spy master or something of the sort that will really give them a leg up in taking part of any real murders to help cripple your enemy. Now, our last tip of the day is actually about destroying enemies from within. Depending on which faction or character you're playing across the map, you can actually swear fealty to someone above you. So take a look at this example here. We start out as a duke, or what is called a petty king, that is according to your culture. And Brittany is kind of a very difficult starting position. And what we can do to kind of curb the difficulty on this is click on the Kingdom of France, right click on him, and swear fealty. And I can see this is going to go through, and it's going to make me a vassal of France. Now, depending on the crown authority level of France, I can actually use this to fabricate claims on other vassals within this territory and gobble up these vassals or these territories for myself. So this is a really great way if you're starting out as, say, a duke or even a count, just something that is next to a larger kingdom or a larger empire and you really don't have much room to expand. You can use this method to really help you expand your territory outward. Another good example would be over here. This is an empire. I'm going to go ahead and switch my character over into Targovishta. I think it's this character right here, right? This was the one I wanted to look at? Yeah, that's this one right there. So as this character, I already start as a vassal. And I can see that since my liege is tribal, he only has the first step of the tribal crown authority. So I can use this to my advantage to, again, declare war on vassals and gobble up territory and make myself a larger vassal, eventually becoming a duke or a king. And then down the road, you can declare independence and kind of destroy your enemy from within. So hopefully these 8 tips helped you out in starting your next campaign or helping you deal with succession throughout yours. There are plenty of other tips in Crusader Kings 3 as it is a massive game. So if you have any tips that you'd like to provide to the community, please by all means leave a comment below, spread that information. I'm all about trying to get as much information out to the community as possible. But as always guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, all that fun action. But have a good one and take care.